Ladies and gentlemen, I don't broadcast on Sundays, but today we got to talk. Today we have a lot to talk about. Let's get into this. Because my friends, we have a lot to expose today. We're going to be one of the first ones to cover this. And let's get this thing started. We have a lot to talk about. First of all, was Richie Incognito was right. Richie Incognito, the man who, four-time Pro Bowler, one of the best guards of the 2010s and even some of the 2020s, was blackmailed and framed and put on a pedestal as this big bully that was in the NFL that didn't treat his teammates right. Well, that's now not the case anymore, because we have now new evidence that this is not the case. And guys, we're going to break it all down right here on Inside the Huddle. Welcome on in once again, ladies and gentlemen. I am your host, Lucas Hill. Thank you once again for hopping on this beautiful Sunday evening. I still got to plug in my laptop, which is funny but guys, I was excited to break this because I first saw this on Twitter and I was like, hey, we got to talk. We got to holler, because this is incredible that we're seeing this type of development. So give me a minute, guys. I'm going to go plug in my laptop and I'll get back with you in just a minute. All right, let's get back after it, ladies and gentlemen, because, look, if we're going to be real and really tell the story how it is, we got to look at the actual facts. When this first came out about 10 years ago, with the whole Richie Incognito being a bully thing with the Dolphins, nothing really made sense. Now, you could say, oh, he had a history of doing this. Oh, he did this whenever he was at Nebraska for or two or three times. Oh, he did this during the NFL. You saw anger management and stuff. But they ended up, and now look, am I saying Richie Incognito hasn't done anything like this? I'm sure. We're all guilty, and as the Bible says, we're all sinners and all fall short of the glory of God. But for someone like a Jonathan Martin and his family to say that, oh, we were bullied and oh, we were harassed, and then for all this to come out, here's what happened. So in 2013, this was back in November, they reported on his role in a bullying scandal. So this was what originally happened. Originally written by the late Chris Mortensen and Adam Schefter. So we're talking about Adam Schefter, by the way. This is the original article back in 2013. His role in alleged harassment is under review due to an incident that provoked Martin to leave the team. One ranking Dolphin official who did not want to be identified defended Incognito as a player who had been a model citizen and was mystified by any allegations related to Incognito. Meanwhile, several sources insisted Incognito was involved, alleging that the incident was not isolated and extended to 2012 when Martin was a second-round pick by the team. One source said that any emotional issues Martin is experiencing are directly related to his harassment. Okay. There's just so much that is weird about this, is that literally you're talking about something that happened about 10 years ago, and you're in the NFL. This seems kind of stupid to even worry about when you're a multi-millionaire in the NFL and you're bullying. This whole thing didn't make sense to start off with. So eventually, yes, Jonathan Martin did end up leaving the team. But then earlier today, around noon, the Miami Herald released a story by Omar Kelly, who's a Miami Dolphins insider. He's been there for the last 20 years, 25 years or so. So Martin was around for about 3 years, two-time All-American with Stanford. I mean, we're talking about a smart kid, you know? So here's the thing. You got to think about this as well. October 21st, they signed Bryant McKinney just to take over at left tackle, and then they moved Jonathan Martin back to right tackle. And it was concerning about moving Martin due to the impact on him. It was clear Martin isn't thrilled about the move. You can approach this two different ways. You can go in the tank and be one of those guys who bitches and moans and is a cancer in the locker room, or you can be a guy who goes out there and can be a professional and play as hard as I can. And then literally a week after saying this, he leaves the team. And then 4 days later, he accuses Richie Incognito, who is the ringleader in the harassment of Martin back in the 2012 season. So apparently the most egregious of these exchanges was a highly graphic voicemail that was left in April of 2013, in which Incognito calls Martin a half N-word POS, threatened to slap Martin's mother across the face, and Ethan Duther to death threat against Martin. I don't even know. I don't know, man. There's just so much garbage that's coming out of this that it doesn't really make a whole lot of sense. And then, boom, this article pops up. Jonathan Martin, he lied about being bullied. So, yes, the voicemail was fake. Everything else that they came out, they tried to basically put dirt on Richie Incognito's name, which, hey, that turned out not to be true. By the way, got a couple of guys that got a couple of tweets that we got to go over from Richie Incognito. And by the way, he even calls out his former coach, Joe Philbin. So if that's saying anything, you better be paying attention. And look, Joe Philbin he ain't that, honestly. Longtime OC with the Packers, but he just never could get it going as a head coach in the NFL. He wasn't that good. Let's just be real. So let's talk about the story. He lied because it was easier than telling the truth. Usually that's why most humans lie. We're selfish creatures and it's human nature. So much so that toddlers tell fibs naturally. It's innate in us, not even learned behavior. What the hell? The biggest issue, problem, gripe, frustration I have about Martin's recent admission to ESPN that he lied about being bullied by his Miami Dolphins teammate in a saga that's infamously known as Bullygate and led to a 144-page report done by an independent investigator is that lives were ruined in the process. Oh my God, yeah. Seasons spoiled, careers tarnished, all because Martin couldn't be honest with himself, his family members, and the world until now. This is what he said in the ESPN article, and we'll get to the ESPN article in a little bit. But right now, this is the opinion. I initially thought this was the original piece that got out about it, but I was severely mistaken. Where is the? I saw the Martin case earlier, and I was like, what? And this title floored me whenever I initially saw this. And we'll get to this later. I never believed I was being bullied. They told ESPN in a well-crafted story aimed at rebranding the former Dolphins second-round pick turned NFL bust as something other than a victim. Props to Martin for rehabbing his life. He's supposedly a Bitcoin expert now. What? Seeking help. He's been hospitalized for depression a few times and finally telling the truth. It's never too late to tell the truth. Oftentimes people are incarcerated or fired because of lies, but the damage is done. It took him 10 years to tell the truth. Richie wrote to me in a private exchange. The rest of our conversation will remain private because Incognito, who is painted as a Martin's abuser by the Ted Wells report, wants to know part of the story. He will never do an interview about Bullygate. He won't participate in any of the documentaries. There's 2 production teams that are working on to examine the story incident or exploit the story incident lie that changed sports forever. It's so interesting because of it. From his standpoint, Incognito lost a year and a half of his life and income because of Martin and Bullygate. Dude. Look, like I mentioned already, in this piece, these points to it. Richie Incognito is not the greatest person in the world. He's had his struggles. He's not the greatest, most well-behaved individual on the field, but who is? It was embarrassing at times. When you play football, it's beneficial that you have a screw or two loose. But they weren't Martin's abusers. They were his teammates and mentors, his friends, and times at his confidence. In fact, Incognito was Martin's best friend on the team, a mentor, his protector. I witnessed that with my own eyes. Their teammates testified to that for the Wells report. Incognito once asked me to go easy on Martin with my criticism of his performance, and I did. So for Martin to paint Incognito as an abuser and the reason he checked himself into a hospital during the 2013 season and wanted to quit football was wrong. Look, you're talking about a guy that was there. Talking about a guy that was always there. So this is the last part is pretty good. Not going to lie to you. Bullying is an epidemic in this country, if not for the world, but it's also common. That doesn't make it acceptable or a behavior we should encourage, but neither is lying. Did football culture, which at one time shaved penises into a rookie player's head as a hazing ritual, need to change? It probably did. But I would prefer if it wasn't Martin's Bullygate lie and scapegoat that led to that evolution. This whole thing just blew out of proportion whenever it got loose. And what is so interesting about this, now look, I looked at the story. Anthony Oliveri just did the story. He's been there for the last 10 years, but I don't know what made Martin come out finally and just say, I lied. I really don't. But something happened between, and look, Oliveri doesn't have a big following on X. He's got 800 followers. But they're trying to paint him out as a tortured, evolving soul. Let's just get real. Let's get real about this. I don't know if Martin wanted to participate in this or not. Regardless, with his name being involved in this, he is a prime, I would say, suspect to this, or a prime whatever. Doesn't matter. The fact of the matter is that Incognito's name got blatantly disrespected for about a year and a half because of this. So let's go ahead and talk about it. Here's a notable excerpt. Here we go. From this thing. Here we go. I'm trying to find it. December 28th marked 10 years since Martin's last game. To this day, he does not like to talk about Incognito or Bullygate. He wants to be known as more than NFL locker room prey. Here we go again with the whole bullying BS. There you go, right there. So they're still marking him out to be the victim here. I hope you guys are reading this. I hope you read it in detail. Because you're still looking at this kid like, oh, he's a victim. He's not. Get it together. Let's get real about this BS. This is stupid. This is utterly disrespectful to Incognito and everybody that was involved in this. That's ridiculous. A legacy can be a living, breathing document. There's a hopefulness in that, but also a relentlessness. We're always writing our stories, but they're never finished, and we can't fully escape the events of our past. After years of requests, Martin finally agreed to speak with ESPN. It only took you freaking 10 years. In a series of interviews starting in late 2023, he was determined to emphasize what he's doing now and to communicate that his plans for the future and how he should be judged. His job might be harder than protecting a quarterback from 300-pound pass rushers. He edits himself in real time, texting updates and changes to previous comments. He sways from being assertive to being cautious. I wonder why. He describes himself as an alpha and wants to assure you he wasn't a fully formed person in his 20s. Really? Maybe it's because that's why your mom was involved in all this. He worries about retaining agency of his story. I never believed for a second I was being bullied. He wants the world to forget the only thing that it remembers about them. It's a story I've been trying to fix for 10 years. Well, guess what? Guess who painted that picture for you? your own damn self. You're the one that ended up doing it. Oh, by the way, the freaking writer that wrote the thing, he now follows me on X. He now is a part of this thing. In real time, ladies and gentlemen, the staff writer from ESPN that wrote that article about Jonathan Martin follows me now on X. How about that? Oh my God. That's funny. All right. But no, it was a very well written article, all seriousness though. But I just don't know. I don't like how they're portraying him to be the victim still. And look, we all are bad human beings in our time. We are not perfect. And especially when you look at Richie Incognito, I mean, come on. Richie. You weren't the most. If you were like a clean cut guy and you didn't really have a whole lot under your name when it came to off the field issues, this would be another thing. But it's Richie Incognito, and you see how he is on the field. You see how he was outside of the locker room. You kind of would like. It's kind of hard to defend a guy like that, especially at the time being. But I'm glad this is all coming out now because it's been a while. And look. We knew it was going to come eventually, so I don't know, man. I don't know. All right. So he's got a bachelor's from Stanford and a master's in real estate and finance from Georgetown. So, so now all of a sudden he's a Bitcoin expert. Interesting. Okay. So let's get to the bullying ordeal. If we're getting real about this, first of all, let's go to some of the tweets. Because we really need to go over the tweets that Richie posted. Because these tweets that we're getting is giving us a lot of insight, by the way. Clay Travis posted something about it. And then in comes Richie about it some more. So let's go ahead and start to this first tweet that we got from him. Because, guys, this is insane. He couldn't cut it in the NFL, so he quit, and his mom blamed me. Legacy media pushed this narrative. By the way, if you guys don't know what legacy media is, so we're talking ESPN, ABC, NBC, CBS, Fox, all the great things. They lied to protect his money. He quit. You know why? Like we mentioned, 7 days after a week after the team signed Bryant McKinney and they moved Jonathan from left to right tackle, he wasn't happy about the move. And a week later, something happened in between there, whether it be a dispute with his coaches, whether it be a dispute with front office execs. He walked out of the building. He quit. They lied to protect his money. The team had every right to claw back that money. His mom started the bullying narrative with ESPN and Adam Schefter so that the Miami Dolphins wouldn't go after his signing bonus. You are absolutely correct. And then the other tweet that was from him was this. It was made up by Jonathan's mother and father, reposting from Clay Travis. Guys, this is insane. Guys, I mean, again, I am not in any way or shape or form saying that Richie Incognito was this great soul who got blamed for something that, he doesn't have a rap sheet for. He does. Sorry. He dates back all the way to his college days. I wouldn't be surprised if it does in his high school days. But that's not the point here. We're talking about what happened during this period between 2012 and 2013. None of it added up. Because look, if Jonathan Martin would have... Every time when you sign a contract, you always have these agreements that you send to. And guess what? You never lived up to them. And because of that, because you quit and things didn't go your way, when you didn't like the move to right tackle, you quit. You didn't like it. And you want to come out here to ESPN and says, oh, how does this happen? Or, oh, he bullied me. Oh, he did this. Oh, he did that. No. That's incorrect. And look, Jonathan Martin's not any better. Richie, and it's not like they're both buddy, but it's not like they're both egregiously bad. Martin had a freaking shotgun on Instagram, threatened to either end his life or get revenge on his bullying that never ended up happening. And he had 4 felony counts on that with the Post. Then the count got dismissed and he spent 2 years in a diversion program. So when is the apology going to happen? When is the accountability about to come up? When are we going to get real about this and say, we need to hold Jonathan Martin accountable for what he did? We haven't heard anything from them yet. So what are they going to do? Are we officially going to have an apology or no? Because look, if we're being honest, the opinion piece from Omar, who was right there at the scene, he's been covering the Dolphins for 25 years, ever since the start of the decade, or since the start of the century, actually. He's been there. He knows what goes on, or at least has a decent point of view from what it's like on the field, at practice, in the pressers, even when you go to the locker room. By the way, I don't go in the locker room. I'm a former player. I'm going to respect that, and I'm never going to do that. I will never, ever go into a locker room of an NFL player or of an NFL team. It's not – I would rather value their privacy rather than be up in their face asking questions. That's stupid. That's just me, though. But anyway, Martin hasn't talked with Richie Incognito or the others linked to Miami in the year since. But I don't have any hard feelings towards anybody from that situation anymore because Richie Incognito and Mike Pouncey already peaked. They've already achieved the most success they're going to achieve in their life, and I'm just getting started. John Jerry, too. Would he consider having a conversation now? No. He doesn't. What? Even John Jerry is a hell of a guy. I like John Jerry. John Jerry was an interesting guy. Look, but John Jerry's the same race as Jonathan Martin. Oh, you get called the N-word by people of the same skin tone? Come on, man. Sorry. You don't like it, but I got to be real with you about that one. How would you handle confrontation differently now? I respect everyone. I give everyone a chance. I'll be nice to you, smile on my face. If you disrespect me, I'll rip your effing head off. By text, he reaches out later to clarify his answer. Rip your head off was a metaphor speaking to the competitive fire. It is not a threat. I am not threatening anyone. I follow the rules and I'm polite and respectful. Reached by a phone at his home in Arizona, Incognito said he respectfully declined for comment from this story. We've already talked to him. We've already seen the tweets. He wants nothing to do with this. Messages left for Pouncey and Jerry were not returned. He forgives his mom. So, just doesn't seem to make a whole lot of sense. And it just is weird because his mom was involved in this. She's the main reason why there's such a big controversy about this. So should we really we should partly blame Jonathan Martin, but the biggest blame needs to go to his mom. She's the one that pushed the narrative that Richie Incognito and this whole gang of guys in the offensive line room bullied him out of the NFL. No, he didn't. He quit. Context clues can tell you he quit. And let's just get real about that one. That's all I'm going to leave it off for now. I've spent a little bit too long basically talking about this. It doesn't make sense seeing all that has happened and just knowing what both parties have gone through and what both parties have had to deal with recently. It's almost disrespectful just to see essentially where both parties have ended up. But again, at the end of the day, you can only do nothing but get an outside perspective as to what really happened going on in that locker room. But for Martin to come out and say, oh, he lied after 10 years is incredible to me. I don't know why you wouldn't even just come out and just be straight up with people. Doesn't make sense to me. All right. That's enough of that story because we got other stories we got to talk about. We got to talk about the best transfers that are on the offensive side of the ball for college football going into 2025. I've come up with my list of guys that I think is going to be a bunch of dogs on the offensive side of the ball. And we got some dudes that I think are going to be big time going into 2025. So let's start off with our number 10 guy. It's Barian Brown, who's now at LSU. And Easton Vincent's in the chat right now. He can attest that he's excited for Barian Brown. Barian Brown is an electric player. 6'1", 173 pounds. I think he can gain another 10. And I think you can put him in at that X position. And I think that you can put him as like, he's a guy that I think can win the one-on-one battles. You can utilize him anywhere on the field. I think he was just so poorly used at Kentucky. And he was used everywhere on the field. He was a return man, used in the run game, used in the receiving game. The biggest issue is that he didn't have a quarterback to throw him the football. Now we're going to see a really, really good quarterback in Garrett Nussmeier throw Barian Brown the football. Barian Brown is a heck of an athlete. And I think with what he brings to the table for the Wildcats, I think that LSU is going to be in for quite a ride in 2025 with Barian Brown as your guy that, hell, even if a guy like Nick Anderson isn't really going to be able to see the field, it doesn't matter if Chris Hilton isn't healthy, whether Aaron Anderson has his catches reduced because of the added value from the portal. Barian Brown is going to be that guy that is going to be a difference maker for you at the wide receiver position. Coming in at excuse me. Coming in at number 9. I think Mekhi Hughes is going to be a dangerous running back. And I don't think people are paying attention to Mekhi Hughes as much as we really should be. Because Mekhi Hughes has a huge upside to him. 2-time All-American over with Tulane. Ran for 1,000 yards both times. He's going to be in a position to have a lot of success with Will Stein as his offensive coordinator. It's been a while since Oregon's had a dynamic running back. Now, you can look to last year and say, oh, we did this, we did that. Look, it's hard to replace a guy like Bucky Irving. And you could say Jordan James had his moments. But look, man, nothing can really replace what a guy like Bucky Irving did for your team. And I think that he might be not coming back. I don't know if Jordan James is coming back or not. But I do think that what he brings to the table, it's definitely one that is concerning to me with how good the running back room can be for Oregon. But a guy like Mekhi Hughes is going to be dangerous. Shifty guy, north and south type of athlete. Can make a lot of guys miss. He is hard to bring down. He's 5'11", 210 pounds. The dude is a dog. And look, we've had guys from here cover him. I think Scout has covered him a couple of times. Mekhi Hughes is a dangerous back. And what he lacks in, let's just say, height overall, he brings to it in his ability to run the football. He is a powerful running back. And I think he's going to have a lot of success this year. I think that with what Oregon's going to bring to the table in 2025 in the run game, they're going to really be dynamic. And with the young back and with a young guy that's coming in at quarterback in Dante Moore, you're obviously going to need to take a lot of the stress off of him. And that's why you got a back like Mekhi Hughes who can get out of the backfield and be a pass catcher, and he can get you easy first downs on second and third down. My number 8 guy is Pat Coogan. Pat Coogan is a man at guard. I think he has an opportunity to be a first-round draft pick as a guard. 6'5", 310 pounds, going to Indiana, going to be with our guy Fernando Mendoza. And let me just tell you, it is going to be really good. That guy can get out in space and pull. I think that this is going to be really interesting to see what Indiana can do in year 2 of the Curt Cignetti era. Boy, you came out with a splash when you got 2 of the best transfers in the class of 25, when you got Fernando Mendoza, who can replace who can be your plug-and-play quarterback. And then you've got a guy in Pat Coogan who can really bolster your offensive line that really dominated last year, but in those 2 games and in Big Ten play, when you play Ohio State and when you play Notre Dame's front, you lacked a lot of interior presence. And look, this is huge for Indiana to get a guy like Pat Coogan and to get a guy like Fernando Mendoza. Mendoza's a bit more shifty. He's a bit more of your typical running back or more of your typical dual threat quarterback. You know, I think that it serves to his advantage. And I think it's going to definitely help at the end of the day with what they're going to bring in. You're obviously going to have to replace a guy like Curtis Rourke, who is going to be very much so missed. Had a great season last year, but I think he's in a good position. I think Indiana's going to go into 2025. If they go 8 or 9, if they have 8 or 9 wins, wouldn't surprise me one a bit. You bring in Mike Shanahan as your OC from JMU. He's been with Kurt Cignetti for a while. And trust me, I love Kurt Cignetti. I have no issue with him talking, and I love it when he does. Mike Shanahan has been with, my gosh, he's been with Kurt Cignetti since 2016, whenever he was at Indiana University at Pennsylvania for about 5 years. Boy, he is an experienced offensive coordinator. And Shanahan, and what he lacks, Mike Shanahan's a hell of an offensive play caller. That's why he has been so successful. And that's why Indiana is going to be going back in the next year. Definitely would consider them a dark horse 10-win team. Wouldn't surprise me if that happens, but we'll have to see. All right. How about Nick Anderson? Nick Anderson to me is an interesting prospect. I'll tell you what. Yeah, Nick Anderson to me, there's a lot. It's a boomer bust type of situation with a guy like that. My thing with a guy like Micah with Nick Anderson is this. High risk, high reward. You're talking about a guy that's coming off of an ankle injury that missed a good bit of last year. Nick Anderson has a lot to bring to LSU. And you're talking about the guy that caught the back shoulder fade to beat Texas in the Red River rivalry 2 years ago. You're talking about a guy that, dude, you don't know what he's going to give you. Is he going to be fully healthy when it comes to his next year? Got hurt against Tennessee. He hasn't played a full game in 2 years. Nick Anderson to me is going to be one of those guys that you don't know what to really expect until you get into the actual season. Until you get into probably fall camp is when we'll get our first nice look at what Nick Anderson is going to bring to the table. But the guy is a jump ball receiver. He can use his body to get leverage off of DBs. I think he can really be a difference maker right there. And I think that he's going to be one of those guys that you better look out for in 2025 if he is healthy. If he's not, it's going to be a rough one for LSU. But you've got a deep receiver room if you're LSU, and you're happy with that. Kevin Concepcion. Casey Concepcion is a heck of a prospect. He is one of those guys that is extremely, extremely dynamic. 5'11", 189 pounds, speed. Speed is the name of his game. Casey Concepcion is one of those guys that you would love to have on your team. When you talk about a guy and what he is going to bring and how dynamic he's going to be, you bring him in with Terry Bussey, with Micah Hudson, that receiver room is going to be dangerous going into 2025. And you bring in and you have a young guy in Marcel Reed that's going to be really good. Dude, it's going to be really, really good. It's going to be one of those years that Texas A&M could have a much better offense than they did last year. I think with year two, I think they will get better on offense. Now, how does that offense translate to the field, and how will it improve their overall record? I don't know. I genuinely don't know. Because until we see something different, we're not going to get a Texas A&M that's going to win 10 games. Sorry. Whether you like it or not, that's the truth. And that is nothing but the truth. All right, coming in at number 5. Isaiah World is a man out there at offensive tackle. You talk about an Oregon offensive line that got hammered against Penn State and against Oregon. Against Ohio State. And you see what he does. He bullies defensive linemen. He is an excellent pass rusher. He's just Stonewall out there at tackle. He's a workhorse. And the guy is an unbelievable specimen. 2-time honorable mention all Mountain West. 2 offensive linemen to start at 13 games. Now, I know you're talking about Nevada, but you're talking about a guy that has so much upside to him, has so much talent that you cannot miss out on a prospect like that, and you're getting a dog. Number 4, I got Zachariah Branch. Zachariah Branch is going to be the playmaker that Georgia needs at receiver. You're talking about a team that had 36 drops last year. You cannot have that. And you can't afford it. Zachariah Branch is going to bring you a lot of different looks in the return game and in the receiving game. Improved a good bit last year. Got a lot more targets, got a lot more catches. There's a reason why they're comparing this dude to Reggie Bush, and it's because of how dynamic he is out at wide receiver. And I think he's going to make a big difference for Georgia at the end of the day with what he brings to the table. I think it's going to be really interesting. And just knowing that there's so much talent with him, how he responds to it, he's done well the first 2 years with an elite OC in Lincoln Riley. Now we'll see how he adjusts to the Mike Bobo offense. We'll just have to see. Number 3, I got Carson Beck. And I know some people may not like it, but I don't know what to expect from Carson Beck. If he didn't have that AC injury, if he didn't have that Tommy John surgery, then I would be looking at him differently. And if he didn't have the middle of the season that he did while he was at Georgia, I would think differently of him. Or UCL injury, excuse me. I am not really. I'm pretty concerned about Beck in this offense. Now, look, you're getting into the Shannon Dawson offense that was electric last year. And look, Miami's getting a lot of young guys back that were pass catchers for Cam Ward last year. But it's still Miami. And how he's going to benefit from that being in the Dawson offense and how it affects his opportunity to advance as a pass catcher, we'll see. We will see. Will it work out for the good? It could. I think it could. I think it could be a big thing. You get CJ Daniels from LSU. I think he's an electric receiver that did not get a whole lot of looks at receiver. But your tight end game is still lacking, for better or worse. So, what do? You don't really know. My question is, do you take a chance and go get Jonte Cook again? Probably not. I wouldn't either, if I'm being straight up with you. So, it's how do you improve that tight end game? That's the biggest question that I have for Oregon or for Miami going into 2025. Now, I'm not saying that Carson Beck's not going to make a big difference. He is, trust me. Believe me. Oh, he is going to make a hell of a difference. Number 2, I have, but Eric Singleton Jr. just makes a bigger impact for Auburn in 2025. Eric Singleton was in an option-first offense and made so much of an impact that it was stupid and ridiculous. You can look at those last 2 games and get a real clear-cut picture as to why. Look at what he did against NC State and helped that team go down the field and put themselves in a position to win that football game. Look at what a guy like Singleton did against Georgia, going up against that secondary. 8 catches, 86, and a touchdown. So if that doesn't tell you what type of impact he is making for this team, doesn't make sense, huh? It's really impressive. Hey, by the way, Richie Incognito is about to have a day. This is the latest tweet that we saw from him. This is us bullying Mike Pouncey for wearing a blanket during our buggy ride to dinner in Indianapolis the night before a game. There you go. Looks like a scary scene. This might be worse than the case. Oh, God, this is going to be great. Oh, yeah. Hey, have a great freaking day, bro. Like, this is awesome. This is amazing. I'll just say that much. This isn't crazy. Anyways. But no, Eric Singleton is going to be a big impact for Auburn that needs another pass catcher. Now I understand you're going to lose some dudes if you're Auburn. Hugh Freeze has been cooking in recruiting and in the portal. You get Jackson Arnold, you still maintain Cam Coleman, who's going to have another counterpart. If Eric Singleton doesn't have 1,000 yards receiving, it's pretty impressive because you better have a Cam Coleman that popped off. Cam Coleman and Eric Singleton is going to be the best receiver duo in college football, but they're not the number one overall prospect and the guy that's going to make the biggest impact for their team, none other than John Mateer. John Mateer is a game changer at quarterback, and there's a reason why. Here was a guy that was with Ben Arbuckle. That's the biggest reason why he's number one on my list is because you bring your own offensive coordinator to Norman, Oklahoma, and you're still in your backyard. The guy is an unbelievable prospect that can change a game in a hurry. I mean, holy shoot. You're talking about a guy that threw for 3,100 yards, 29 touchdowns. You're also talking about a guy that ran for 826, 44 total touchdowns in 2024 alone. You're talking about a guy that has over almost 4,000 total yards of offense by himself. And I think with the type of offense that Washington State has run the last 2 years, look, Ben Arbuckle has had Cam Ward in his backyard. Ben Arbuckle is a really, really good offensive coordinator. I think that when you pair him along with Mateer, that is going to be the best duo, coaching and quarterback duo in college football. The only problem is you got to address some guys in the portal, get some young guys in at that X in the skill position and at the tight end position. If you can do that, and if Oklahoma realistically wins 7 or 8 games, it's going to be because of what John Mateer is going to be able to do to change the outcome of a lot of games. That's just the bottom line truth. And guys, look, John Mateer, number one on my list. John Mateer, best athlete that I've seen at quarterback in a while. But here's what's going to happen. John Mateer may not go on to be a top draft pick. He's got the intangibles. He's got everything that you need in a quarterback. But how is he going to fare in an offense that is without a guy like Ben Arbuckle? They're comparing this kid to Johnny Manziel, which, honestly, he's a bit bigger and shiftier than Manziel was. But, man, that's a heck of a claim. I would definitely be excited to see a Manziel-type season coming from none other than Ben Arbuckle's best quarterback, John Mateer. Guys, thank you all for joining. Had 45 of you up in here. My gosh, y'all had nothing to do on a Sunday? Anyway, guys, thank you guys for joining in. Thank you all. Have a great rest of the day, and we will see you all this week. We got a bloated lineup. Got none other than our good friend Harrison Fant from SEC Unfiltered Baseball Analyst joining on the show. Talk some college baseball on Wednesday. Get into some more previews as well. T-Rich Tuesday. Ty Richardson coming on Tuesday. Got a great show for you tomorrow. Until then, guys, y'all have a great rest of Sunday. We'll see you then.